Your next smartphone or tablet purchase could be pricier than usual. China is where most big tech companies get their products made, and Trump has targeted that country with some steep tariffs. To take a closer look at this, we're joined now by technology expert Carmi Levy. Carmi, thank you for making time for us today.
Good to be with you, Natasha. Thanks for having me.
Well, Carmi, it's all tariff all the ding-dong time. So let's talk about, we've got the U.S. hitting China with tariffs. That's aside from our own trade war and tariff war with the United States. And then China has retaliated with tariffs. So when it comes to our smartphones, our tech gadgets, are we seeing the prices of these products being affected?
We're starting to see upper pressure on them. That's sort of being buttressed by the fact that there's still lots in inventory that hasn't been manufactured yet. But as that inventory gets drawn down, we are going to see prices go up. Already Acer, a major manufacturer of laptops and other consumer electronics in the U.S., has announced a 10% increase in pricing for much of its lineup. That will have global impact as well. It doesn't just stop at the border. And we're also seeing here in Canada, Apple did not announce this, but their latest products they're holding the line on the base models of those products, in some cases reducing them. But the upgrade costs, if you want more RAM, if you want more storage, those have become more expensive in recent weeks as well. And so the companies, many of them aren't going to say that it's directly due to the trade war. However, it'd be naive to assume that that's not one of the impacts that we're seeing, as well as the currency. Canada's currency obviously swooning compared to the U.S. currency. That's going to have an impact as well, given that most of these technology companies are based in the U.S.
Why wouldn't these companies want to acknowledge that the tariffs and the trade wars are impacting the consumer prices?
I think there's a political overtone to how companies operate now. They're concerned that anytime they make an official announcement, they might be subject to some kind of sanctions south of the border. We have a fairly unpredictable political situation there. Unpredictable president who, seemingly rules by social media. You don't want to find yourself on the wrong side of that. In many cases, the less said, the better.
Can I ask you, how did we get to this stage where the entire world is dependent on China to make all the products that we rely on so much every single day?
Well, the reason that China has become such a manufacturing and assembly superpower is they're ruthlessly good at it. They're better at it than most other countries in the world, and they can do it far more efficiently. So if you are an American company, Canadian company, doesn't matter where you're based, you're always going to be looking for that lowest cost production geography. And in most cases, when you run the math, you do the numbers, look at your spreadsheets, it's China that sort of comes up at the top of that list. They can build the biggest factories. They have a workforce that's optimized for this kind of thing. And then in terms of producing complex products that are based on technology, that have incredibly integrated supply chains, China's just really good at it. And so the world, as it looks for better, more efficient production, they've kind of settled on China, not just recently. I mean, this goes back decades, and that continues to this day.
Are we looking for alternatives on that front, particularly as China now poses such a massive presence in the political realm as a global player, as a potential superpower, possibly competing with the United States as the global superpower?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of companies over the last number of years, predating the current tariff drama, trying to remove all of those eggs from the Chinese basket, trying to diversify their production. For example, Apple and Google and others have been investing in Vietnam and India and shifting some of their production of their key products, like their phones and tablets and laptops, into these markets. One of the advantages of those two markets also is that Chinese wages have gone up significantly in recent years, and they're in some cases double what India and Vietnam pay. So there's this constant sort of battle to move toward lower cost production countries, and at the same time hedge your bets against growing political uncertainty as China becomes more belligerent on the geopolitical stage.
Is there a possibility that we would have the capacity in Canada to offer an alternative, or where is a space that we could occupy in terms of technical production, of producing some sort of instrument that or device that would be useful to the public, where we don't have to rely on either China or the United States?
it sounds great politically to say we're just going to make everything within our own borders, go back to a domestic focused economy. But the truth of the matter is we gave up a lot of that manufacturing capability decades ago, and reestablishing it, making those capital investments would not be cost effective. And we might be able to, for example, build smartphones here in Canada, but they might cost 2 or 3 times as much and the quality might not be there. The real hope for Canada lies here in looking at our rare earth minerals. We have one of the world's largest deposits of them, and as it turns out, they are critical to building smartphones and other devices, but we haven't figured out how to get them out of the ground at scale yet. So if we build that part of our infrastructure, we could position ourselves well to be a superpower in these critical minerals, which would ultimately reduce the risks that we face, based on the trade war that we're seeing now.
Carmi, talk more about those critical minerals. I find this endlessly fascinating. What is it that we have? What would it take to really utilize this resource?
So, there are 17 of them. They go by the names of like terbium and promethium and samarium. And basically, you can't make batteries without them. You can't make electric motors without them. You can't build computer system boards without them. All of the exotic manufacturing that goes into the phone that you hold in your hands requires these rare earth minerals. And as it turns out, Canada was blessed with them. Our Ring of Fire has some of the world's largest deposits. And so, and of course, China right now does have very significant deposits as well as production and distribution infrastructure. They're leading, but we could, if we want to prioritize this, which then would give us a driver's seat position in the global economy. We might not be able to produce all of these devices locally, but we certainly have one of the key pieces that nobody else has, and that should be a national priority going forward, because your smartphone doesn't work unless these things are pulled out of the ground.
Carmi Levy, always good to speak with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate being here, Natasha. Thank you.
You're welcome.